Hey, Tracy, welcome to the Open Door Sisterhood podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I love the sisters.
Well, the sisterhood is in full force this spring. Spring cleaning is what I'm thinking we're all doing right now. What is it about spring where we just say it's time?
I think, so I come from a farming family background. I was raised in Northern California in the Central Valley, and my family was Scottish and farmers in my Midwestern family. And I think there's something about, the long winter and everything's been packed away and it's musty. And then all of a sudden, I just feel like the earth gets clean, right? Rain comes down and little sprouts come out. And there's something about being reborn or starting anew, or, Easter's coming up. And so I think it inspires us, and it's like, it's sunny again and you don't just want to eat popcorn and watch TV.
Totally. It's so true. It really is the natural rhythm of things where we just all of a sudden, the weather gets warmer, the sun comes out, and we go, okay, it is time. I need to start throwing everything away that I don't use. I need to organize every drawer in my house. So talk to us a little bit about clutter. I mean, how do we get there to the point where we're all just pulling our hair out saying, how in the world did I end up with this much stuff?
So that's such a great conversation. And I address this in my book, which we'll talk about later. But, I think what people don't realize is that there are forces working against us. It has never been easier to shop in this country. I mean, I live in a major metropolitan city, so I can order something on Amazon and I can have it delivered in less than 4 hours.
That's insane.
Yeah. And so that, coupled with cheap consumer goods, we don't fix things anymore. We don't mend clothes anymore. I mean, I took a shirt in to get the button replaced because I had a bunch of stuff to go to the tailor. And I thought, let me just do it. He can do it faster. And he was like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, it's a beautiful blouse. I want the button back on, and I think he's like, we don't really see that anymore.
Right.
And I think this idea of mending things, or, it's like, I can just buy it anew. And the result of that is we're buried in stuff. We are in an epidemic. They did a very interesting study at UCLA on modern families and modern home life. And they found that when you introduce a new child into your life, you increase your possessions by 30%.
Wow.
And if you have a second kid, it's another 30%.
Oh, you're kidding. It doesn't go down?
No, you think, because people are like, this kid needs a new crib and I need a new glider. And, so I think we're partly accountable because we're bringing it in. But I also think that the way, we're pushed to buy, and it needs to be new and it needs to be the best new thing, is working against us. So I think it's a combination. And I think, like eating or having that second, third glass of wine, we're looking for ways to not feel our feelings and not be present. Yep. And stuff will do that for you. I can't think about how I feel. I got to manage my stuff.
Totally. Yep. So good. Okay. Well, so let's just begin. I mean, when you work with a client and somebody comes to you and says, help, where do you even start?
So the first place I really like to start is, what's their vision? Why are they calling me for help? Are they calling me because they can't get out the door in the morning on time, right? Is it taking them an extra half an hour to put together an outfit because they can't dig out of their closet? Are they not eating healthy food because their kitchen counters are so covered with clutter that they can't make a good meal, so they're ordering takeout? Or is it that they don't? Look, clutter has been, I'm sure you have talked about this before, but it has been proven to raise cortisol levels, which are our stressors, especially in women. So if you're walking into a cluttered home, your stress is automatically jacking up. So sometimes it's as simple as that, where people are like, I can't do this anymore. I'm managing, I'm the breadwinner, or it's a double income house, or I'm a single mom, or it's just me by myself. And I want to come home and I want to just be able to relax. So we always start with, why are you doing this? What's the goal? And it's never about, people always show me, well, it looks like this on Pinterest. And I'm like, okay, well, that's a photo. So that's not real. So we'll start there, but what are your goals? What do you want for you? What do you want for your family? And that's the starting place. And then once we establish that, we work backwards.
Okay. So starting big picture.
Starting big picture always.
So would you say that some of the goals, I'm just speaking personally here, but some of the goals would be simplicity,
Yes.
I mean, obviously less stress, because when you can find things, that's much less stressful, but also just more simplicity in life where things just aren't so complicated. I don't need 10 spatulas in my kitchen.
No.
One of each size will do, right? So, I mean, it just seems like our why could be multifactorial.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a very interesting, there's something called decision fatigue, where they've done all these studies and they found that the part of your brain that makes decisions gets tired really easy. So if you have 10 spatulas to choose from, that's a decision you don't need to be making.
Right.
You need two. You need a metal one and you need a rubber one. Mm-hmm. That's it. And even if you're making pancakes every day. So it's simplifying it can be stress and simplifying. And also I think, Krista, they go hand in hand, right? When you start to kind of pull the onion apart, you're like, oh, right, these are all interconnected. My life is complicated and I'm overcomplicating it. So let me take this back and, oh, wow, I noticed that I'm a little less stressed. Look, my favorite phone call is when I get from a client and, we'll have decluttered and organized their garage. And they're like, what we did this weekend? We found the bikes, we found the bike pump, and we went for a bike ride. I mean, that's the goal, right?
Totally. Absolutely is the goal.
That's the goal. We got everybody out of the house on top. We had a birthday party on Saturday night. We got everybody out of the house. Or I got, I live by myself. I got myself dressed and out the door and, in the morning. So it really, at the end of the day, I think you've hit it on the head, that it really is simplifying for happiness.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds so lofty, but I don't think it is.
Yeah. And just having more mental space, which we don't have enough of. We are constantly on in our brains, and they're, research is showing that it's really not good for us. And so the more we can decrease clutter, then the more relaxed we feel in our space, the more white space that opens up. It's just a win-win-win-win.
Exactly.
So, okay. So let's just dive into practice, because we all want to know how. I mean, we all really want to be so walk us through.
So what I like to do is, if you're doing this by yourself, I really, I always suggest to start small. So meaning, don't think you're going to get this done in a weekend. I always say Rome wasn't cluttered in a day.
Right.
So start small and set yourself up to be successful. So for example, don't start with all the things that your mother who passed away left you. Right. Don't start there. Start with, let's just say, for instance, magazines don't mean anything to you. Some people are very attached, but you're like, magazines don't mean anything to me. And you look around and you're like, wow, these magazines, I'm never going to, in fact, you know what my magazines do? They make me feel bad because I don't get around to reading them.
So true. That's
so it's this reminder. Yes, I know. I just got put on a list for a magazine that I didn't order. And I'm like, why do you keep showing up? Food and Wine, I'm never going to read you.
Totally.
So I've been giving it to the people who work at my front desk in my building. So it's about starting with a non-emotionally charged category or space, a linen closet, a front hall closet. So start small. And then it's a matter of pulling everything out. I had called it the 5 Ps and I always forget one. Pulling everything out, putting like with like. That's the most important thing, because what that does for you is it tells you, how much of everything you have. So let's say we're doing a linen closet. You pull everything out, you put all the queen sheets together, all the twin sheets together, all the full, then you're like, oh, I have 10 sets of twin sheets and we don't have a twin bed anymore. I only have 1 sheet of queen sheets and those are the most, so it really helps you see how much you have. And
You're taking
then,
inventory. You're basically
yeah,
doing inventory like a company would do.
yeah, in the simplest way. And it also, it's again goes back to that decision fatigue, where if categories are together, you're not rattling back and forth. You're not like, oh, where the sheets, you're very focused. So once you've pulled it all out, you've put it together, now is the time to purge. Right. So again, what you said of after you've taken the inventory and you're like, we don't have a twin bed. The kids crib sheets are one I come across all the time. People are like, oh, the kids are in college.
Yeah.
We don't need a crib sheet anymore. So those go in the donate bag if you can donate them. And once you've done the purge, it's about putting things away. So I always say you get to keep what you want as long as you have storage for it. And storage means, not sheets in 16 places, but in a good, reasonable linen closet. So being mindful about how much space you have to store. And then when you're all done, there's this peace of mind where you're like, oh, I open my linen closet. There's sheets for the beds I know I have. Oh, I need a few of these sheets. Here's the extra blankets. Here, it's all right where you know it. It is. And then when it comes time to look for it, you don't have to be running around. Where's this? Where's that? It's like, my grandma used to always say, don't put it away. Don't put it down, put it away.
Totally.
And it's
what's that saying? There's an old
place
saying
for everything and everything in its place.
that, or a stitch in time saves 9.
Yeah.
Is
it's
that right?
Yeah. A stitch in time. Then there's another, exactly. And it's funny how these are all, there are sayings for a reason.
Right.
And you think they're so old fashioned. You're like, not really.
There's wisdom in them. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So that's the thing. And what I tell people is the idea between starting small is that it's going to set you up for success, right? You're going to do a linen closet, or you're going to do, look, even if it's the junk drawer in your kitchen, you're going to see how good it feels. And you're going to go, okay, I'm ready to tackle the next project.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things, and I'm sure you guys will put a link up, or we can let people know, one of the things that I talk about in my book is what happens when we hit up against emotional blocks.
Yeah. What do we do there?
Right. So it all sounds practical, right? It all sounds, well, I can get rid of all these pillowcases. Oh, wait, those pillowcases my great grandma embroidered.
Totally.
How can I possibly get rid of those? But they don't fit on the size pillows I have. So it's about identifying, if decluttering isn't easy for you, it's identifying what's keeping you stuck. Are you sentimental? Are you frugal? Do you feel like, oh, I spent so much money for this? The joke I always make, and it's a joke because it's true, is I say to clients all the time, well, do you use this giant treadmill in the middle of your bedroom?
Right.
And they go, oh yeah, I use it every day. I hang my clothes on it.
Totally. Right.
So it's looking at, sentimentality. Are you frugal? Are you buying because you're lonely? Are you hanging on to stuff for a life you're not living? It's there.
That's interesting. Talk about that one.
So, for example, this one falls into it. Do you have a closet full of clothes you can't fit into because you're like, well, someday I'm going to get that size.
Guilty.
Yeah. And you're like, well, I hope so, if that's what you want. If not, but does that make you feel good? Or do you just open up your closet and go, oh, I just feel bad? Is it serving you? Does it serve as a goal, or does it just continue to make you feel bad? Mm-hmm. And do you not hang the clothes up that you're wearing currently because there's no room in your closet because they're full of your skinny clothes or your fat clothes? Right. How about your you clothes? How about the clothes you wear every day?
Right. That's a good quote right there. How about your you clothes?
How about your you clothes?
And I've also heard that about women who transition to working at home, but they keep, all their suits or all their work clothes, but never wear them anymore.
Exactly. So that's a great example of, is your closet serving you for the life that you're living right now? Are you working from home now? fantastic. You know what? You need to keep a couple suits in case you have a meeting, and possibly you're never going to go back to corporate life or that kind of a job. And that's okay. And I think it falls into either, oh, I was a failure, I didn't keep that job, or all these stories we tell ourselves. And I'm like, it's okay. Just let it go. Let it go. It's all right. If you get another, look, I'm Scottish by descent, so I am cheap. But that if you got another job, you would be able to buy new clothes, and keep enough that you could do a week's worth, but don't keep 2 months. So I think it's being really acknowledging the life that you're living right now. My friend of mine always jokes, she was like, I have 3 small kids. I can't have nice stuff right now.
So true.
I want to reupholster my couch. Can't do it. So be honest. My brother and sister-in-law, the same thing. They have these dining room chairs that they're like, oh no, we have a 3.5-year-old and a 2-year-old. Like, we're not no.
It's so true.
So I think it takes a little bit, Krista, of getting honest with yourself. What's the life you're living right now? And that's fantastic.
Yeah. I've got a question about what happens when it's the great-great-grandmother's china or the great-great-great-grandmother's bowl that she brought over from, Ireland. I mean, and then you've got all of a sudden all this stuff that's been passed down, but you can't get rid of it. What do you do with it?
Well, I would say use it.
Yeah.
I would say use it. I would say, if you're not going to, if it's just sitting up on a shelf gathering dust, then that's the same as not having it. If you don't use it, it's the same as not having it. So why not let it go? Why not let it go? Or why not use it? Because everyone's like, well, what if one plate breaks? Okay, well, it's a plate. Our ancestry and where what we want to remember is the stories and where we came from. I think we put too much weight on the objects, right? I think that, look, if that bowl that came from your grandmother in Ireland, I mean, I'm looking at right now, I have a clock that my grandparents got when they bought their very first TV. It came free with the TV.
No way.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Clock with TV.
Exactly. I love it. I have it out. It makes me so happy, And then I came across something the other day. I was actually going through some stuff. I know. And I was like, oh, these little figurines. I don't like them. They don't go with my house. They don't make me happy. I'm going to let them go. So I don't think we're beholden to hold the stuff in the way that we think we are. I think it actually becomes a burden. And it's really about, respecting the memory. It's the same thing I feel about gifts that people give you that you don't like. You don't have to keep it. The gesture is the gift, right? The gesture. If I gave you something, Krista, I gave you a sweater that, let's say, itches and you can't, and and you said to me, oh, I'm miserable when I wear it. I'd be like, let it go.
Right.
I wanted to do something nice for you, but if that's not nice for you, you don't have to. So I think we really lose the gestures, and we really lose it's not about the stuff.
I like that. The gesture is the gift. So you can still honor the gesture, even if you're not going to keep the object.
And that's so sweet. And you can still write an amazing thank you card and be really like, thank you for thinking of me. So I did have this thought the other day where I was like, lately, it's just past the holidays. So I've been decluttering a lot of people. And I'm like, I wonder if sometimes people give us gifts that someone gave them that they didn't like.
Right. Probably.
I
Most likely.
I regift all the time, but I'm honest about it. I'm like, by the way, someone gave me this and it's not my scent of candle. Would you like it? And they're like, oh, fantastic.
Right.
So be honest. There's no problem with regifting.
Hey, that's called upcycling, in my opinion.
Exactly. 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 So I think that, the burden of stuff that's been inherited is weighty. I also think people go down a rabbit hole of this might be worth something. This is worth so much money. And I'm like, just because it's old doesn't mean it's worth anything.
Okay, so that's a good question. How do you know if something is?
This is where the internet is our friend. This is where the internet really, you can simply, I mean, you can get it appraised. If you live in a major city, it's really easy to get things appraised. A lot of appraisals.
Where do you go?
There's big companies like called Bonhams and Butterfields and Sotheby's, and a lot of places you can just send in photos and they'll give you, also kind of pay attention. Sometimes you'll see in the paper, like an auction house will be doing free appraisals because they want to, they want to get the business. So that's a really good way. There's also independent appraisers, and I have it on my website. I think it's called the Association of Independent Appraisers or something. And they're usually around $125 an hour. So they can do that. Also, a really great thing to do is go on eBay, search the item, and see how many are listed on eBay, if they're selling, and if so, what was the price they sold for?
Mm-hmm. Key.
Yeah, so key. Somebody was showing me a button the other day and they go, look, it's selling for $2,000. And I'm like, it's been listed for 3 years.
Right.
It's not selling for $2,000.
Totally.
So I always call that magical thinking. Right? This is, I watched Antiques Roadshow. I know this is going to save me. So I think you got to do your due diligence. You got to be accountable. And look, family stories are fantastic, but they're not always factual.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes, true. Well, that's very helpful. That was a great section. I like that section because I think it's that the emotional side of clutter is real. And it is. I mean, we all are hoarding things because we're emotionally attached to them.
It's almost mostly, I mean, that's why I'm so excited about this book to come out, because I think there are 7 emotional blocks. And I've been doing this for 12 years, and I've worked with thousands and thousands of clients, and we all hit up against the same 7. And they come back, and they come in different times in your life. And, I'm entering an age where I personally and my friends are all dealing with aging parents. So that's a whole, and I do a ton of senior downsizing. I help seniors move out of their home, and some of them are incredibly ready for the next step and others are not. And what's really happening is their kids don't want any of their stuff. Their kids have houses full of their own, and somebody said the other day, well, I want them to have it. And I was like, well, I want to go to Hawaii, but
right.
Again, as my grandma said, if wishes were nickels, we'd all be millionaires.
True. Okay. So what are the 7? So give us just a quick, I just want a quick list of what are the 7.
Exactly. So there is sentimentality, right? Feeling sentimentally attached, feeling living for a life that you're, buying or shopping for a life that you're not living. Then I'm getting them. That's using shopping to fill a void, right? So you're buying or you're shopping. My stuff tells me who I am. Then this isn't one of my favorites. I'm not worth my good stuff. I don't use my nice things.
Oh, really?
Right? Like, I don't know if that was a real example in your life, but use your grandma's nice china, set a nice table. Like, why can't Tuesday night be as special as Christmas? Your family or or you by yourself, you're having a nice meal. Why don't you get to do that?
I know. It's like that old poem that's, when I grow old, I want to wear purple or something. Like, remember that poem?
Yeah.
In that poem, it talks about like, do it, use it, and so it's actually I'll put it on the show notes, but it really does bring home that point. Like, if you have it, use it, or why have it?
I have a great story. So my dad was born in Honolulu, right around the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And so my grandmother and he and my grandfather lived there before they came back to California. And so my grandmother had, when she passed, I was cleaning out some of her stuff, and I found these beautiful Aloha linens. It was like a table runner and napkins. And I was like, wow, in the box, still wrapped in tissue, Liberty House. The ribbon hadn't even been off.
Wow.
I was like, these are gorgeous. So I threw a party. I threw a luau dinner. It was just one of those fantastic dinners. Like everybody came together. It was so fun. Got a little rowdy. Think food got spilled. And so the next day, and everyone kept saying, where did these linens come from? Where did these linens come from? And I said, I was like, told the whole story, and they're like, how can you use these? Oh my God, you have to save them. And I said, for what?
Yeah.
You know, she's been saving them for 60 years.
And they're still in the box.
And they're still in the box. So I used them, and I went to wash them, and they all disintegrated. And I thought,
They disintegrated?
Well, I thought, but they were already on their way. I was like, they would have
Right.
just disintegrated in the box.
Right.
Like they had one great party.
They had one good party.
So, you know, I'm really about use your nice stuff. Treat yourself, as they say, but, you know, wear your nice clothes, wear your jewelry. Like, what are you saving it for?
Yeah, there's only one life. This is it. We're living it in the present.
This is it. Exactly.
Okay, what are the others?
The clutter block number 6 is trapped with other people's stuff, right? So that's what we were talking about, the inherited, or somebody sick, or even as simply as like, well, my friend moved to DC 5 years ago and asked me to keep all this stuff in my garage. And, you know, and I'm like, okay, so you're parking your car on your street because your friend.
Right. You're like, okay, boundaries. Can we talk boundaries?
Exactly. And then the last one is what I call the stuff I keep paying for, meaning stuff, I can't get rid of this. It's so expensive. You know, I spent a lot of money on it. It's like, I know you did. And sometimes we just have to accept that we made some mistakes, you know, or how about the stuff that we bought on a credit card that we're still paying off, right? Yes. Or how about, you know, this is a simple example. How about the stuff we keep buying at the grocery store because we don't go to the grocery store with a list? And so you come home and you're like, why do I have 6 mustards? Every time I go, I'm like, I need a mustard.
Yes, I've been using the AnyDo app.
Tell me more.
It's just an app. It's just an organizing app. I can remind myself. It syncs with my Remind app on my iPhone.
Oh.
And it has the grocery list feature, but it also just has a great reminder system. So anyway, but I've been doing my grocery list.
Another great, I know you said your listeners really like practical tips. And one of I do for a lot of people, or, you know, get that is, make a grocery list in Google Docs or whatever you use. This is the stuff we always need, right? Like I always have almond milk. I always have tea. I always this. And then you can literally, right before you go to the store, print it out or look at it digitally and check what you need. And then you can, if you're doing a special dinner, add to it. Like make it easy on yourself, right? Mm-hmm. Like take stitch in time saves 9. We go back to this, you know, take 10 minutes, that's all it's going to take. Make yourself a grocery list that you can live with and use. Set yourself up for success. That's the thing, right? So then you're like, oh, this is what I always know. Or else take a picture. You know, there's so many ways to do it. This is where smartphones really help us. So, you know, and I think that we sometimes in our chicken with the head cut off mode, that we don't realize that if we just take 5-10 minutes. I'm a big fan of to-do lists. They save me. It's my second brain. And and some days I'm like, oh, I'm just spending time on my, you know, this 10 minutes or 15 minutes, I could making these phone calls instead of doing my list. And I'm like, no, then I have a plan.
That's right. No, the mind dumping works. It really
mind dumping. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's really great. And there's a lot of interesting planners out there right now about kind of helping that, help you modify it. But, you know, it's also like the good old fashioned, I tried it. I read it somewhere. I had gotten really lazy about making my bed. And I went back to making my bed every day. And I literally wrote a book and sold it and met my boyfriend. And I was like, is this tied to making my bed every day?
I'm a believer. I'm a total believer in making my bed. And if you watch that military guy, he is
Yes.
on YouTube. He is
Yes.
too.
Yes. That's what got me. That's what got
Okay,
me
it was
doing
that. It was that video. I'll
Look
link
at
it in
me.
the show notes.
Yeah, because he just said it. He's like, your first task of the day, you succeeded at. And you're like, you just feel, and then it's silly because I talk about it a lot and people sort of roll their eyes. And I'm like, no, really, try it.
It's real. It's real. I'm trying to teach my kids that. Okay, I have a question about the stuff a lot of people say, including a lot of people, meaning me, a lot of the time, say like, I'm just keeping that because I'm going to sell it instead of giving it away because I can get money for it. What do you say to those people?
So I say a couple things. I say that, yes, it is possible. And there are great resources. I mean, Facebook Marketplace, people are having a fantastic selling. I sort of like that better than Craigslist because
How come?
Because it's not strangers. You can see a person's profile. You can see if you're linked with friends. I think it's a really good way to do that. I know there's things like ThreadUp for the clothes. So there are Poshmark is it? Yes, is actually real. Linda's stuff for clothes, and there's a couple good baby ones that I'm not 100. I'm not 100% of what they're called, but I definitely know that those things are great. So here's what I'll say to you: selling things takes time.
Right.
You've got to take pictures of it. You've got to post it. You've got to meet people to come at your house. You've got to, deal with them, picking it up and doing it. So there's an investment of time. So is the price that you're going to get worth the time you're going to put into it? That's the question you have to ask yourself. So if it's something that you can only get $10 for, is 2 hours of your time worth that $10? And look, there are lots of people who are in a position where like, yeah, I need that $10. I get that. I'm just saying be realistic. That maybe the tax write-off is more important. And also, are you using that I'm going to sell it as an excuse to not do it?
Right. Well, and how do you know what to price things at? Because that's hard too, because who knows what to price
I know.
at.
I mean, I think you do a little due diligence and research and see what other things and, see if people are going to bite. And look, I'm forever the bearer of bad news. I'm like, no one wants your old used furniture.
Right.
They don't. I know you bought that table in 1992 and it was $1,500, but you're lucky if you're going to get $50 for it. Lucky.
It's true. And half the time we can just think, I like to think I want to bless someone with this. So like we just donated our huge sectional to the church youth group because they can use it. Millions of middle school kids can pile on that and they don't care what color it is and they love it. So rather than try and sell it, which I could have, but I feel like it's just going to bless that space so much better.
Let me tell you a great story. I had a client who very quickly had to move her mom into assisted living. And so, take time off from work, fly across the country. It was all varied. She called me and she said, there's a lot of beautiful furniture in our house. It's a little dated, but it's in great condition. And I feel like I should sell it. And I'm like, you got 3 kids and you've got a full-time job and you're there for a weekend and you got to get your mom's I'm going to say, and she said, well, what do I do? What do I do? I just, it's some of it's family heirlooms. And I said, you know what? Throw it up on Facebook. Like just throw up, like, here's the situation. And she put up here's the scenario. And it turned out like her first cousin's kids had just gotten married and were getting their first apartment and showed up with a U-Haul and 3 young friends and loaded it all up and took it away. And she was like, oh, I feel so much better than $500 in my pocket.
Totally. Absolutely.
So I think and that's a great, Krista, you bring up a great point. This is what I tell people about donating is, there are fantastic organizations. Goodwill does amazing work, but sometimes for people that bigger, sort of box place doesn't quite speak to them. So, for me, it's rescue animals. So, I'm always gathering old sheets and towels from clients and dropping it off at the animal shelter.
Yeah.
My clients are like, wait, what? And I'm like, oh yeah. So, if it's a little hard for you to give away, maybe if you find a person or a family or an organization that speaks to you, a big one for me is foster kids, and someone told me a long time ago that kids in the foster care system often show up at their court hearings or move from house to house with their stuff in garbage bags. And I was like, what?
Mhm.
What? So I'm forever gathering suitcases and duffel bags and backpacks from clients and dropping them off at a couple different organizations. And
That's awesome.
yeah. And I'll tell you, when I tell a client that that's what's getting done with it, they're like, wait, I have more.
Totally. They're like, hold on. Hold on.
So if it's tough for you, I know a lot of churches across the country are helping refugee families.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a way to do it. There's a way to do it that's going to speak to people. And I think that's, again, full circle, to get a little honest with yourself.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I even think of foster kids who are going to college. They often say they literally have nothing to go to college with.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got all this stuff.
Yeah.
Let's set up some kids to go to even a college dorm.
Yeah. One of the organizations I work with in LA does a lot of getting homeless kids off the street and into apartments, getting them emancipated. So I'll get a call, a couple times a year, like, hey, we're getting an apartment. What have you got? And I was like, I got a whole kitchen, give me 3 days and I can get you a couple beds and, and make some phone calls. So I think that's a great point, that if it's hard for you to let go and you're not really finding the motivation to sell, donate it.
Yeah. So good.
Okay.
So let's transition a little bit. I want you to
Sure.
help us. So I want to pick 3 areas: the kitchen, the garage, and a bedroom.
Okay.
And I want you to help us zone things. So like when you walk into a person's house and because I kind of think those are kind of the main spaces that tend to absolutely come unglued.
Right.
So how do you coach people on those 3 spaces? And maybe let's just take the kitchen first.
So fantastic. So the first place I like to start is this is where people go, what? I always say clutter starts 3 steps back. So if your kitchen counters are piled up with stuff, it means really that your kitchen drawers and your kitchen cabinets are stuffed, right? If you don't have room to put stuff away, or if the mail's all piled up, what does your desk look like? So it's about tracing where things are supposed to live, right? I can guarantee you the dishes aren't getting put away because there's no room in the cupboards, because you've got 10 chipped coffee mugs that you can't bear to get rid of because, oh, my kids made it at Color Be Mine, Right. So it's about identifying what your storage spaces look like. And then it's, again, the 5 Ps. I also want to say, if people want to go to my website at tracymccubbin.com and they sign up, you do get a document that has these 5 Ps listed. Okay. So it's a great resource, but it's about pulling everything out. And like you said, how many spatulas do you have? How many coffee cups do you have? How many, do you have a set of dishes that you don't ever use again? And it's getting rid of the stuff that you don't use, that's chipped. And this applies to everything. The garage is a great example. Can you park your car in it? 25% of Americans can. 75% can't.
75% can't.
75% of Americans cannot park their cars in their garage.
Wow.
So, it's, again, where's all that stuff? Did it just become like, oh, I'll just dump it here. I don't know where to put it. All my closets are full. I don't know where to put it. And also, another really good vantage point to look at things is, are things in the rooms that they belong in, right? So is your bedroom, and a lot of people have their home offices in their bedroom, but is there 5 years of old taxes stacked up in the corner of your bedroom? And that's not good for sleep. That's not good for anybody, right? So looking at a bedroom is for sleeping or for doing homework, a kitchen is for cooking and eating, a garage is for storage. So really saying, Are the things in the proper rooms? Are the proper rooms being used? And is the proper piece of furniture being used for that? And so it's looking at through that lens. At the end of the day, your home is a tool, right? It's a tool yes. Should it be beautiful? Of course. Should it make you happy? Of course, but it's a tool. It's shelter, it's safety. So is it being used in a proper way?
That's good. And I I know for me, it's been helpful to put a timer on things so that, I don't get overwhelmed, and I just say, okay, for today, I've got a half an hour. So I'm going to set the timer for a half an hour, and I'm going to tackle these 2 cupboards.
Yep.
And I'm going to make sure that all these water bottles have lids, and I probably don't need 10 of them. So I can give away 8 of these water bottles and just keep.
By the way, the newest, biggest clutter offender is the freebie water bottles. I'm like, oh, people, you need 2. I think each person needs 2 good ones, but those freebie ones with the bad plastic, I'm like, just don't even take them anymore. When you do the 5K, don't even bring them home.
It's so true. So tell me, like, what, do you have some certain stores, or where do you get your organizational products, and what do you think is really worth it and what's not?
So I'm lucky. I live in Los Angeles, and I know the Container Store like the back of my hand. So I like it a lot. I think Bed Bath & Beyond is pretty good. A lot of this stuff you can get on Amazon. But here's the trick. Okay, here's where the mindfulness comes in. Here's where the getting honest with yourself. Absolutely, containment helps. Dividing things helps. But are you buying more stuff to put your stuff in? Right? Right?
Yes.
I always tell people, I'm always like, show me the bag of bags. I know there's a bag of bags somewhere. So
no, that's true.
Right? So it's about, do not go and buy all that stuff until you've done the purge. Right? So don't go like, this is going to solve the problem. It's like, no. Purging and getting rid of what you don't use is going to solve the problem. And then if you need a drawer divider, fantastic. Then if you need to organize your makeup, fantastic. But don't even look at the website. Don't even open Instagram until you purge.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And there's great inspiration out there, and people are talking about great products, but what, again, we're being marketed to, they're not telling you to purge first.
Mm-hmm. So what are some, just from your experience, from all your years of doing this, as people are spring cleaning, kind of what would you say are your top tips? So I feel what I've heard you say so far is, identifying some of those, what'd you call them? The
7 emotional blocks.
The 7 emotional blocks. So I think that's where we start for sure.
Yeah.
And then we start with taking inventory.
Yep. And this is
purging.
a great, and this is a great, and to go a little finer grain and sort of more practical, let's use the season to go like, okay, here's a perfect example. Winter coats. Let's look at all mine or all the family's winter coats. Well, Tommy, no one wears that size anymore. This coat didn't get worn all winter. So use the season change to help you make your decisions. Oh, winter happened and no one can fit in those boots anymore. So they go, right? Make it easy. Add the practical element to it. So I think that nobody wore this all winter, or it hasn't gotten worn in 4 winters.
It's interesting. I do this with my clothes. I have winter because we live in a very 4-season climate.
Right. So you do
we have heavy winters, but I use it to my advantage because I actually put all my summer stuff away and then I get all my winter stuff out. But what's nice is at the end of each season, I go through every piece of clothing every season. And I give stuff away, and I, see
it's fantastic. I didn't wear this all summer, or every time I put it on. If you put something on 3 times and take it off and don't wear it out of the house, you're never going to wear it.
Right.
So, right. So that season change, I mean, I live in LA and we have one season, but I love, I love using that to take inventory and to see it. And Krista, I think this is important for people to understand that it's a project, right? That this is going to take some time. So just like we have to schedule going to the gym in or work or like go, okay, this Saturday afternoon when the kids are all at the baseball game, I'm going to change out these closets. We're not just going to like, I always tell people, you're not going to just like wake up and declutter, you got to set the time. It's a chore in the sense of, I've got to get this done. And so if you want it to happen, you've got to make the time for it and understand, okay, you've done it for a long time now. So you're like, all right, it takes me 4 hours, or, whatever the time. But it's also like the people who, have Christmas ornaments up until April. I'm like, well, cause you got to set the time aside.
That's a great point. Like, and it's worth the time to value it like you would an appointment. This is worth the time because actually my mental health is attached to the way I operate in my space. It is.
Totally.
And so it's worth the time that I would invest. It's just like we're investing in a really good thing that's going to have returns mentally.
Somebody, this buzzword self-care, right? We're all talking about self-care.
Yeah.
And I read something, somebody said, I thought this was so interesting. Self-care doesn't mean a bubble bath. It doesn't just mean a bubble bath and reading a good book. Self-care means making choices in your life that keep you happy and healthy. So to me, this, for me, decluttering is self-care because then you're going to, let's just talk about the kitchen. You self-care, you declutter your kitchen so you can cook healthy food and you can, break bread with your family. That's the ultimate self-care. That's way better than, a box of chocolates.
That's so good.
I think we forget that taking care of ourselves looks a lot of different ways. Going to the gym is self-care, and I really think that decluttering is self-care.
Yeah. I think it's a really important perspective to have.
Yeah. And especially if you're the female that's managing a lot of people, right? And that can mean your own kids, aging parents, we as the sisterhood, we take it all on. So if you're managing a bunch of other people's lives, then to keep your life, able to move through it is self-care.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. Anything we've missed today, Tracy, that you think is really important? Is there anything like that we have to know? Tricks of the trade.
I know. We've covered so much. I feel like I've given everybody such a,
how about even just give us your top apps, websites, anything like that would be really practical.
It's funny. For time management, I have been using this amazing planner called Savor the Success. It's really great. And I'm old school. I like to write it out. I believe in that theory of it stays in your brain if you write it out. So I'm a big fan of that. You know what else? I mean, I'm going to say it. I am a huge fan of taking pictures of stuff. When I park my car in a parking lot, I take a picture of where I parked it.
Yes.
I take a picture of, and then I just delete that stuff. I declutter my photos, but I'm like, I can't hold all this in my brain.
Okay. On that note, I forgot to say this when we were talking about it, but that's one way I keep kids stuff without keeping the object is I take pictures of everything.
Absolutely.
So I'll take a picture of their artwork or the little piece of pottery that they made so that I have it, but I don't have to keep the actual thing.
And do you know about there's a couple great, I think Artemis is one of them. There's a couple great websites that I think it's called Artemis. I'll get the information to you, but you send in your kids' artwork, they scan it and they make books out of it. Have you talked about this before?
No, this is brilliant.
Yeah, it's great. And by the way, that turkey hand looks so much cuter in a book than it does on.
Seriously, how fun is that?
And then the kids are like, and some of my moms get in a phase where they're like, end of school year, send it in the shipping box, off it goes. They're really reasonably priced and they look fat. And you're like, Timmy, 6th grade or, kindergarten.
Well, so I could do that with all my kids' pictures in one book or, a multiple book, and then they could just have them out. That'd be so fun.
I was at a client the other day and like her son had his book out and was like looking at his artwork. It's so cute. So that's a great, and I'll make sure you get the information for the one, I believe it's called Artemis, but I don't want to send people to the wrong. But that's a good tip for that's a great way to do it.
Okay. Anything else? Anything you use?
Anything else that I use that I will say, okay, I'm going to leave everybody with this. You'll go, what? The biggest thing that people miss is you need to adjust adjustable shelves. So when you open your kitchen,
that's so good.
Right? Yeah. Everyone's like, wait, how did I get all this space? And I'm like, because I just dropped the shelf down 4 pegs and I went to Home Depot and it made you another shelf. Adjusting adjustable shelves is, it's just a game changer.
It's brilliant.
I know. Brilliant. Isn't that the silliest thing?
Not leaving them the way that you come into them.
Right. It's just because the contractor put it there doesn't mean you have to.
Totally. Isn't that so true?
I know.
That's so true. That's really good. Well, Tracy, this has been a ton of fun.
Fantastic. Krista, it was great. This was I love talking to you and all of your listeners. And, please everybody feel free to find me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Tracy McCubbin, tracymccubbin.com. And then the book drops on June 4th.
So exciting. Well, the content is fantastic and it's something we all need and we are all overstuffed with stuff. So this is really timely.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tracy. Have a great day.